this is Warhawk Beyond 2040, bringing to you another edition of the Wrestling Discussion Series. And it has been announced and confirmed that the first inductee to go into the WWE Hall of Fame as part of the class of 2026 will be none other than the Billion Dollar Princess herself, the lovely Stephanie McMahon. Now, when I heard the news that Stephanie McMahon was going to be going into the WWE Hall of Fame 2026, I was completely surprised because I really wasn't expecting this, and I certainly wasn't expecting Stephanie McMahon to be the first McMahon to go into the Hall of Fame. I fully expected it to be her dad, Vince McMahon, because whether you like him or not, I just thought it made more sense that he goes in first. But that's for another conversation for another time. All of that aside, do I think Stephanie McMahon deserves to go into the Hall of Fame? Absolutely. I think she's more than earned that right. And do I feel she's long overdue to go in? Of course, definitely, 100%. And it's quite crazy when you think about it, when you look at how far Stephanie McMahon has come from being the fresh faced daddy's little girl to being the hated billion-dollar princess to the SmackDown GM to being one half of the authority to now essentially running the company with her real life husband, Paul Levesque, also known as Triple H. It's been a very interesting and incredible evolution to watch because the first time I remember seeing Stephanie McMahon on WWF TV, that's how far back this goes, she did have a little backstage segment with Stone Cold back in late 1998, which was leading up to In Your House Rock Bottom. And it was the one where Stone Cold was looking for Paul Bearer and The Undertaker. And Stephanie was there, but she just had a little bit, wasn't really a big thing. But she officially made her television debut in March 1999. And this was around the time when The Undertaker and the Ministry of Darkness were stalking her and they were making the McMahon's family's life hell and driving Vince McMahon absolutely bat crazy. And Stephanie McMahon was a big part of that angle. You know, she was the innocent daddy's little girl, and Vince was really protective of her. And of course, as we all know, she was abducted and kidnapped by The Undertaker. And we all remember that classic moment in the car when Undertaker slowly turns around and says, "Where to, Stephanie?" And Stephanie just screams. And of course, the one thing I remembered the most from that time was the whole dark wedding where Undertaker was attempting to force Stephanie to marry him, and then Stone Cold came in, saved the day, beat up the ministry, and drove the Undertaker away and rescued Stephanie. So I remember that very well. And as an on-screen character, yes, Stephanie McMahon at that time, you know, she was just the innocent little girl who everyone was very protective of. And you had that whole stuff with Shane and Test feuding over Stephanie. And it was very typical family drama stuff. But Stephanie was right there in the thick of things. But little did I know, and I'm sure all of you would agree with this, little did we all know that Daddy's little girl would end up becoming one of the biggest heels ever in the company. And of course, we all remember she was drugged and Triple H through that infamous drive-through wedding in Las Vegas. And she turned on her dad at Armageddon '99 and officially turned heel. And her and Triple H became the whole McMahon Helmsley era thing and was running a company. And Stephanie McMahon really came into her own as a heel because, when you look at the early days when she was the fresh faced daddy's little girl, she was okay on the mic, pretty normal. She wasn't anything special. I wouldn't say she was terrible, but she was okay. She was pretty average. Fast forward to the end of 99 as we head into 2000, Stephanie really transformed. She went from, looking like this plain daddy's little girl to being like this full on grown up with the big hair, the high heel boots, the leather outfit, and all that stuff. And wow, anybody who knows me, I'm a huge fan of Stephanie McMahon. Not just for those reasons, but I do love her work as a heel. Obviously, being very attractive doesn't hurt. In fact, I think it only enhances the package. And to me, Stephanie McMahon was at her best when she was with Triple H and she had that whiny, annoying voice which sounded like chalks being scraped on a blackboard or something. It was annoying stuff, but Stephanie McMahon knew how to get nuclear heat. She was very good at getting people to hate her. Obviously, Vince McMahon is still the master of that, but Stephanie McMahon was no slouch. She was definitely up there with her dad, but in a different way. Vince was the man you love to hate. He was the guy that you just wanted to beat the crap out of the boss because he was a prick. Stephanie McMahon, on the other hand, she was still like that, but in a different way. You wanted to see Stephanie get her comeuppance. You wanted to see her get humiliated, whether it was The Rock tearing her down on the mic, Chris Jericho throwing cake in her face, things like that, or Stone Cold pouring beer all over her. I have to give Stephanie McMahon 10 out of 10. She was an absolute pro, and she wasn't afraid of taking one for the team. Whether it was taking a stunner or getting rock bottomed every week by The Rock or getting put in the walls of Jericho by Chris Jericho. She was a team player. She wasn't afraid of taking the bumps like her dad, for the pure entertainment for the fans. And I have to admire her for that because, most people, when they've been born into a very successful business or family, however you want to look at it, you know, they wouldn't feel comfortable doing that. But Stephanie McMahon, she wasn't afraid. She was incredibly fearless. She said, "Yep, I'll do that. Why not?" And I admire her for that, to go out there and get humiliated in such brutal ways is a testament to how much of a performer she is. She wasn't much of a wrestler. Obviously she held the women's title. She wasn't really much of a wrestler, but when push came to shove, she was always willing to get into the ring and entertain the fans. No matter how big or small her role was, she was always like, "Yep, I'll do that. Let's do it." Really admire her for that. Really admire her for that. And I think that's what really helped me respect Stephanie McMahon the most because she was definitely a team player, especially in those early years. And of course, she was the owner of ECW with the Alliance, all that stuff. Yeah, some of it got a bit overbearing, but she was still fun to watch, especially around the summer of 2001, leading up to Survivor Series 2001. She was a great performer, a great heel. I did talk about the success and failures of Stephanie McMahon's heel run. Highly recommend you check that out. But I think for me, and I have said this many times, I think for me, peak Stephanie McMahon was when she was one half of the McMahon Helmsley era with Triple H from 1999 to 2001. I think she really came into her own as a heel. And as far as beauty is concerned, her peak beauty, I mean, she's still very attractive even to this day. I think her peak beauty was when she was the SmackDown GM from 2002 to 2003. I think she really looked incredible and she was definitely on a different level to all the other ladies at the time. And I've always been a fan of hers because I never looked at her as just another wrestling lady. And I was never really big on the female wrestlers. I did like Lita because she was quite acrobatic and very athletic, but I liked Stephanie McMahon because she was not only a manager, but she was a big part of the show, and she never had to take her clothes off to get attention. And I really respected her for that because she looks great. I mean, don't get me wrong, who wouldn't want to see that? But the very fact that she never went down that path really made me respect her even more. And obviously, she did tease Playboy, which didn't happen. And I know some people said, wouldn't you like to see Stephanie in Playboy? Well, yeah, of course. But if she goes into Playboy, the fun's over, mystery gone. And the very fact that she never went down that path just added to it even more. And I really respect her for that. The whole authority thing with her and Hunter in 13, I wasn't really big on that because I felt it went on for far too long, and Stephanie McMahon was built up to be this ultimate heel where nobody really got the last word on her, which bothered me a lot. I mean, don't get me wrong, it was great to see her on TV every single week because why wouldn't you be happy to see her? Because look at her. But I wasn't really big on the authority. I just felt it dragged on for way too long. The McMahon Helmsley era was done better because it was a long time, but it wasn't overdone. It started at the right time and it finished at the right time. Maybe you could have snuck in one more year, perhaps, but I think they ended it at the right time when it was still hot. With the whole authority thing, yeah, I wasn't really big on that. And she did wrestle a couple of times. You know, she had a match against Brie Bella, and she really earned my respect because to come back at SummerSlam 2014 after more than a decade after the last time she competed in the ring, and that's after having three children, and to come back and look in phenomenal shape and wrestle rings, no pun intended, around Brie Bella, who's supposed to be, I can't believe I'm saying this, the better wrestler, you know, the person who's there every single week competing. Stephanie McMahon made Brie Bella look like a complete joke. And the fans saw that. The fans cheered Stephanie. Brie Bella, from what I remembered, got booed. Not terribly, but a lot of fans just didn't care. So for Stephanie to come back and look like that and compete that way after all those years away is just nothing short of amazing. And Stephanie McMahon, as I said at the beginning, she's had an amazing evolution. You know, I've had the watching her grow up. You know, it's been quite interesting to say the least, but at the same time, it's been a lot of fun watching Stephanie McMahon every single week as a wrestling fan, and to now see her go into the WWE Hall of Fame for 2026 is much earned and well deserved. And congratulations to her. She And these days, we don't really see Stephanie McMahon on TV anymore as a full makes these little appearances, you know, at the pay-per-views, maybe at the beginning of the show or maybe in the middle of the show, you know, little things like that. So we very rarely see her on TV anymore. She's more behind the scenes these days. But whenever she does appear on TV, it's always great to see her looking beautiful as ever. And the question now I have to is who's going to induct Stephanie McMahon into the Hall of Fame 2026? Personally, it's going to be probably Triple H who will induct his wife. It makes perfect sense. Or Shane McMahon who inducts his sister. The chances of Vince doing it are quite slim. I don't really see that, but you never know. But I think it will probably be Triple H because it's his wife, he's her husband. I think it makes perfect sense because, you know, as much of a big part Stephanie McMahon played in Triple H's career, both in and out of the ring, the same can also be said for Triple H because I feel that he played a very big part in the evolution of Stephanie McMahon. And I think because of him, she's where she is now. She's more recognized because of him. And they both helped each other out. Let's say that. So I think it should be Triple H. You never know. It could be The Undertaker because he was the one who made the announcement that Stephanie was going into the Hall of Fame. So maybe it could be him. Who knows, really? But me personally, I think it will probably be Triple H, but we'll see, really. But anyway, many congratulations to Stephanie McMahon. Well deserved and can't. So, anyway, that's going to be it from me. I am going to wrap this up now. How do you guys feel about Stephanie McMahon going into the WWE Hall of Fame 2026? Are you excited? Are you surprised? Do you think she deserves to go in? And also, who do you think should induct Stephanie into the WWE Hall of Fame 2026? Do you think it should be Triple H? Do you think it will be Shane McMahon? Or do you think it will be The Undertaker? Or do you think it will be one of the female wrestlers, maybe somebody like Trish Stratus or Lita? Or do you think there's a possibility that her dad, Vince McMahon, could make an appearance and induct his daughter into the Hall of Fame? You know what to do, guys. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, leave your thoughts and comments down below, and I will see all of you next time for another series. So until then, take care, everybody, and stay safe. And once again, as always, much appreciated. Thanks for listening. And once again, many congratulations to Stephanie McMahon for going in to the WWE Hall of Fame.